Ready for a deep dive into something you do like literally every second of your life.
Yeah.
We're talking about breathing, the most basic human function. But what if I told you that modern life has kind of messed with our natural breathing patterns? And most of us are doing it wrong.
Yeah, it's fascinating how something so vital can become so overlooked.
Right.
We rarely think about our breath, yet how we breathe impacts our energy, our sleep, our stress levels, even our longevity.
I've read that humans exhale more weight than they inhale.
Yeah.
Is that really true?
Yeah, it's true. You actually breathe out more weight than you breathe in. And a significant portion of that weight loss is in the form of carbon dioxide,
Yeah.
or CO2. And that brings us to a really interesting point. The role of CO2 in breathing is often misunderstood.
Oh, really? I'm all ears. I mean, we're always told oxygen is king, right?
Yeah.
But sounds like there's more to the story.
Exactly. While we need oxygen to survive, our bodies also need a balance of oxygen and CO2 to function optimally. In fact, CO2 plays a critical role in helping our bodies utilize the oxygen we breathe in. Well, it's a bit technical, but essentially, CO2 affects how hemoglobin, the protein in our red blood cells, carries oxygen. When there's a good balance of CO2, hemoglobin releases oxygen more readily, allowing it to reach our cells efficiently. This is called the Bohr effect. It's like a delicate dance between CO2 and oxygen in our bloodstream.
So it's not just about getting lots of oxygen in.
Oh,
It's about having the right balance of CO2 to help us use that oxygen effectively.
precisely. And this leads us to another interesting point, the importance of exhalation. A full, complete exhale is crucial for creating that optimal balance of CO2 and oxygen.
Speaking of making the most of each breath,
Mm-hmm.
how does the actual mechanics of breathing work? Is it all about the lungs?
Well, the lungs are obviously essential, but they don't work in isolation. The diaphragm, that dome-shaped muscle that sits beneath the lungs, plays a crucial role. Think of it as a piston, not just a pump. When you inhale, the diaphragm contracts and flattens, creating space for the lungs to expand. At the same time, the muscles between your ribs, called intercostal muscles, help lift the rib cage. Further increasing that space, this expansion creates a vacuum that draws air into the lungs.
So a deep inhale isn't just about sucking in air, it's about creating space for the air to flow in naturally.
Yes, and the exhale is equally important. As the diaphragm relaxes and moves upwards and the intercostal muscles relax, the chest cavity decreases in volume, gently pushing air out of the lungs.
Good, that makes sense. But what about mouth breathing? I've heard that's a no-no.
You've heard correctly. Breathing through your nose is far superior to mouth breathing. You see, the nose is brilliantly designed to filter, warm, and humidify the air before it reaches your lungs. It also produces nitric oxide, which helps with oxygen absorption, and dilates blood vessels for better circulation.
So our noses are like these high-tech air filtration systems.
Exactly. When we breathe through our mouths, we bypass all those benefits. Plus, chronic mouth breathing can lead to a whole host of problems, from dry mouth and snoring to sleep apnea and even changes in facial structure.
Wow, I never realized how much we take our noses for granted. Do you think the rise of mouth breathing has anything to do with modern life?
It very well could. I mean, think about how much time we spend hunched over computers and phones. This posture restricts our breathing and encourages mouth breathing. Stress, processed foods, and allergies also contribute to nasal congestion, making it harder to breathe through the nose.
It sounds like modern life is setting us up for breathing dysfunction. But before we dive into how to fix that, I think we need to take a moment to let all this sink in.
Agreed. Welcome back. Before the break, we were discussing how modern life can really disrupt our natural breathing patterns. Now, let's shift gears and explore some practical techniques to help you reclaim your breath and experience the incredible benefits of proper breathing.
I'm ready. Where do we start?
One of the simplest yet most powerful techniques is called diaphragmatic breathing, or belly breathing. It involves consciously engaging your diaphragm to take deeper, more efficient breaths.
Okay. How do you actually engage your diaphragm?
It's easier than you might think. Find a comfortable position, either sitting or lying down. Place one hand on your chest and the other on your belly, just below your rib cage. As you inhale, imagine drawing your breath deep into your belly, feeling your belly rise as your diaphragm contracts and flattens. Your chest should remain relatively still. As you exhale, gently contract your abdominal muscles, allowing your belly to fall naturally as you empty your lungs completely.
So it's almost like you're inflating a balloon in your belly with each inhale.
That's a great analogy. The key is to focus on that deep, belly-driven breath, rather than shallow chest breathing.
And what are the benefits of diaphragmatic breathing?
The benefits are numerous. Diaphragmatic breathing helps reduce stress by activating the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for relaxation and calming the fight or flight response. It can also improve lung capacity, lower blood pressure, and even aid in digestion.
It's amazing how something as simple as changing how we breathe can have such a profound impact on our health.
Absolutely. And here's another technique that builds upon diaphragmatic breathing: resonant breathing, sometimes called coherent breathing. This technique involves slowing down your breath to about 5 or 6 breaths per minute, creating a smooth, rhythmic pattern.
How do you find that perfect rhythm?
There's a simple trick. Inhale gently for a count of 5, then exhale gently for a count of 5. You can adjust the count to find what feels most comfortable for you. The key is to create that smooth, wave-like flow of breath.
I can already feel myself relaxing just thinking about it. But why is resonant breathing so effective?
Resonant breathing has been shown to synchronize the heart rate, blood pressure, and brainwave activity, creating a state of deep relaxation and mental clarity. It can also reduce anxiety, boost your immune system, and improve sleep quality.
This is all so fascinating. I'm starting to see how much control we actually have over our physiology just by changing how we breathe.
It's truly empowering. And there are even breathing techniques specifically designed to manage stress and anxiety. One popular method is box breathing.
Okay, I've heard of box breathing. Isn't that something Navy SEALs use?
Yes, it's a technique that helps regulate your breath and calm your nervous system in high-pressure situations.
So how does it work?
It's a simple 4-part cycle. First, inhale deeply for a count of 4. Then hold your breath for a count of 4. Next, exhale slowly for a count of 4. Finally, hold your breath again for a count of 4. You can visualize a box as you move through each stage.
So it's like creating a square with your breath. I like that.
Exactly. The structured nature of box breathing helps distract your mind from anxious thoughts and shifts your focus to the physical sensation of your breath. This helps calm the nervous system and promotes a sense of control and stability.
These techniques are all so valuable, especially in our fast-paced, always-on world.
I completely agree. We've got one more breathing technique I'd like to share with you before we wrap things up for this part of the deep dive. It's a simple but powerful technique called the control pause.
The control pause. What's that?
It's a way to measure your breathing efficiency and identify if you might be overbreathing. After you exhale normally, gently pinch your nose close and start counting the seconds until you feel the first definite desire to breathe. That's your control pause.
So the longer I can comfortably hold my breath, the better my breathing efficiency.
Precisely. A longer control pause indicates that your body is effectively utilizing oxygen, and CO2 levels are balanced. If your control pause is short, it might be a sign that you're overbreathing.
Okay, I'm definitely going to try that later. I have a feeling I might be a chronic overbreather. But before we move on, could you briefly explain why breathing less might actually be better for us?
You're referring to the concept of hypoventilation training, which might sound counterintuitive, but it aligns with what we've been discussing about the importance of CO2. Techniques like the Buteyko method focus on reducing breathing volume and increasing CO2 tolerance, which can lead to improved oxygen utilization and a host of other benefits.
Like what?
Studies have shown that hypoventilation training can reduce asthma symptoms, improve sleep quality, lower blood pressure, and even decrease anxiety.
So sometimes less is more when it comes to breathing.
Exactly. It's all about finding that sweet spot, that optimal balance of oxygen and CO2 that allows your body to thrive. We'll delve deeper into hypoventilation training when we return for the final part of our deep dive into the science of breathing.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the science of breathing. You know, before we started this deep dive, I never thought I'd spend this much time talking about breathing. But it's actually been pretty fascinating.
It's more captivating than most people realize. We've already explored how modern life disrupts our natural breathing patterns and discovered some practical techniques to breathe better. But there's still so much more to uncover.
Okay, you've piqued my curiosity. What else is there to learn about breathing?
Well, we briefly touched on the idea of hypoventilation training and the Buteyko method. These techniques challenge the conventional wisdom that more breathing is always better.
Yeah, the idea of intentionally breathing less seemed a little strange at first. Can you explain how this actually works and why it might be beneficial?
It all comes back to the balance of oxygen and CO2 in the body. As we discussed earlier, when we overbreathe, we expel too much CO2, which can lead to a variety of physiological imbalances. Hypoventilation training aims to increase our tolerance to CO2, allowing our bodies to utilize oxygen more effectively.
So instead of focusing on taking bigger breaths, these techniques encourage us to breathe more slowly and gently, allowing CO2 levels to rise slightly.
Precisely. This might seem counterintuitive, but remember, CO2 isn't just a waste product. It plays a vital role in regulating our breathing, blood flow, and even our nervous system.
And what are the potential benefits of hypoventilation training? You mentioned a few earlier, but I'm curious to hear more.
The research is still emerging, but studies suggest that hypoventilation training can be helpful for a variety of conditions, including asthma, anxiety, insomnia, and even hypertension. Some people also report increased energy levels, improved athletic performance, and reduced inflammation.
That's quite a list.
Yeah.
Are there any specific techniques involved in hypoventilation training?
One common technique is called the reduced breathing exercise. It involves gradually reducing your breathing volume over time, until you reach a point where you're breathing very gently, almost imperceptibly. Another technique involves holding your breath for short periods after exhaling, which helps increase CO2 levels. But it's crucial to approach these techniques with caution and guidance from a qualified practitioner.
Right, it sounds like something you wouldn't want to experiment with on your own.
Exactly. It's important to note that hypoventilation training isn't for everyone, and it's not a quick fix. It requires patience, consistency, and a willingness to challenge your preconceived notions about breathing.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of practical techniques, but how can we integrate conscious breathing into our everyday lives? It's easy to forget about our breath when we're caught up in the hustle and bustle of daily life.
That's a great point. One simple strategy is to set reminders throughout the day to pause and take a few conscious breaths. You could use a timer on your phone or simply tie it to existing routines, like before meals or after checking your email.
I like that idea. It's all about building those micro habits that eventually become second nature.
Exactly. Another helpful tip is to pay attention to your breath during activities you already do, like walking, showering, or even waiting in line. Notice the sensation of your breath as you move through your day. This helps cultivate a sense of mindfulness and connection to your body.
It's almost like turning everyday activities into mini meditation sessions.
Precisely. And as you become more attuned to your breath, you'll naturally start to breathe more efficiently and consciously throughout the day, not just during designated breathing exercises.
This deep dive has been an incredible journey of discovery. I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for the power of breath and how much control we have over our well-being simply by changing how we breathe.
It's been my pleasure to share this journey with you. I hope you'll continue to explore the world of breath and discover the transformative potential that lies within each and every breath you take.
And on that note, we'll leave you to breathe deeply, breathe consciously, and breathe with intention. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the science of breathing.